Welcome to the KSLA Cafe. I'm Dominic Ben alongside Adria Goins. We're talking about a very important topic, and it's been in the news over the past few weeks, and we're talking about vaping. At one point, it was considered to be a safer alternative instead of smoking cigarettes, instead of the nicotine, but now we're learning over the past few weeks and even in the past few days that it can be deadly, vaping.
Yeah, and it could even be worse than cigarettes in some cases. You know, this is something that parents are very concerned with because this is, you know, something like this can be easy to hide, you know, and you have kids that don't, you know, always tell mom and dad everything. So it can be easy for them to get involved, you know, the pressures of school and also the fact that they can hide it. It doesn't smell. You know, you can stick it in your pocket and mom and dad may not even know you even have it on you. So a lot of kids these days are picking this up because they have the misconception that it is healthier than cigarettes. But in true actuality, after what we've learned over the past couple of days, it's not at all.
Not at all. In fact, just yesterday or 2 days ago, the Louisiana Department of Health, they say 9 cases have been identified for pulmonary illness linked to vaping right here in Louisiana. We're not talking about the other illnesses that have happened in other states. This is right here in our own backyard.
Yeah, and they just released some information last night, about a link to vitamin E as well. That is, researchers are saying this link to vitamin E, and also whenever they're vaping with the marijuana substance, vitamin E is linked in every single one of the cases that they have found that people have suffered some kind of pulmonary lung disease.
Yeah, and so what they're finding is severe lung illness. And I saw some video the other day. I'm not sure if this was out of New York or Michigan, but it showed a young, I don't know if he was a teen, but a young guy, and it appeared to be convulsing.
Was he in a hospital bed?
He was in a hospital bed.
It was out of Illinois.
It was heartbreaking watching that video because, you know, a lot of people in the beginning, you could buy different oils to go in here. Now we're learning they're replacing some of the oils with a marijuana type oil. And like you said, that is linked to the vitamin E, they think, that's causing a lot of the severe illnesses. So, yeah.
A lot of it's also geared towards, you know, this is the big debate, the lawsuits that you're starting to see with vaping, is a lot of it's geared towards kids, although they would say it's not. But when you have packets of this candy-looking oil. It looks like something my son will go to the grocery store and pick up off the candy aisle and say, I want this, you know? And that's really, I feel, targeting kids to a T, you know?
Different flavors, as they say, you know? So, wow, it's a lot. So we're going to be talking about this over the next couple of minutes. The e-cigarettes can contain, this is what they're finding from the Louisiana Department of Health, maybe harmful substances, including nicotine, which they were trying to get away from in the beginning. And then heavy metals such as lead, volatile organic compounds, and even cancer-causing chemicals. So think about that the next time you pick one of these up. Even on some of our information that we have here, somebody says they sleep with this, you know, because they're addicted to it. And so just
so what defeats the purpose of being addicted to vaping rather than cigarettes? You know what I mean? Like, the whole reason why you supposed to be picking these up is so you can get away from nicotine and the cancer-causing agents of cigarettes, but yet this is doing the same thing,
maybe? Because, I mean, this just came on the market, maybe 5 years ago? I can't remember.
5 or 10?
Yeah, 5 or 10 years ago. And it seems to, the results or the impact of it seems to be happening far sooner than cigarettes and possible, you know, lung cancer with cigarettes. We're now finding out all of these different things. I think
because it is so new, they don't know what to expect.
I think you mentioned Michigan too. It became the first state to ban the flavored e-cigarettes in the nation. It was the governor that did it. He says he's doing it to protect, starting with children, essentially. But he banned this. I mean, it's become, you know, just an epidemic. It's starting to become here in the United States with these e-cigarettes that are being marketed.
Yeah, a lot of it, and we were just discussing a few minutes ago about how if I was like, say, a 55-year-old man that lives in Michigan and now I can't vape anymore, so it's going to obviously upset some people. But really, like you said, the main target, the main goal as to why, and actually Gretchen, it's the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, she says that, this is really geared towards kids and preventative. So that way it doesn't ever happen to these kids that are, you and I both know we have kids that are young. We look up, I have nieces and nephews my kids look up to. They see them doing something like that. What makes them think that that's not okay? They think it's okay when your cousin is doing something like that.
Well, and especially when you have these inviting flavors, like you said, I think the governor of Michigan was saying they have the flavors like bubble gum and Fruit Loops and, things like that. So we have a guest here expert to talk to us about vaping, the effects, and all the things that she's seen over the past few years with e-cigarettes. Shannon Gresham from CATA, thank you so much for joining us. Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. So it was supposed to be safer than cigarettes? What are we finding out, and what are you guys seeing?
Well, now in America, you hear words like this has become a teenage epidemic, right? We have the opioid epidemic, right, which is affecting everybody. But then sort of behind the scenes is this whole vaping deal, this whole vaping thing with teenagers. As you know, that what happens in that, the mechanism, is the heating and aerosolizing of nicotine, and they're inhaling it. Well, when they inhale it, comes with the nicotine, all of those heavy metals and the solvents that you were talking about just a minute ago. Back long ago, when tobacco was being farmed and everybody was smoking, or at least it seemed like everybody was smoking, we didn't know what the dangers of smoking were, what that really entailed. And so it's taken all these years to figure out that nicotine, smoking, or smokeless tobacco is the #1 preventable disease in America, right? According to the CDC. It kills more people than anything else. And so it's taken us a long time to realize that. And I'm afraid with this vaping, this is what we're going to see. It's been around 10 years or so, and so what's happening now is that studies are coming out and showing just how harmful this apparatus is.
And you were saying a few minutes ago that they could you take this and you see nicotine, and then now here recently you're starting to see more marijuana. But you said, what stops that from being other really hardcore drugs?
Right. So well, I probably shouldn't say it like that. Most drugs, right? They can be eaten, they can be snorted, they can be inhaled, right? They can be injected. And so most of that is a liquid form. So who's to say, that we're going to stop at marijuana?
Right.
Maybe meth, maybe heroin, maybe cocaine.
And that just baffles me. That just baffles me, because it's something that, you have to be concerned about. If you have kids, especially kids that are going into middle school or high school that are easily influenced by their friends. Would that smell? Because, these are the one thing that's popular about this is it doesn't smell.
Well, now the flavors will smell sometimes. Right. You may smell a blueberry scent, and I would suspect that that's what you would smell, is whatever oil it's mixed into.
So you could be sitting there, amongst friends or, wherever, and that you would have no idea that you were getting high off that.
Right. Nobody else would. They wouldn't know.
Oh,
what should parents look out for before it gets to the point where their teen has a severe illness and has to be rushed down the hospital, down the street to the hospital here?
The sad part about it is that, as Adria was saying in the beginning, that it's very hideable. You can't smell it, you can't see it, they're tiny. The big thing now in our high schools and middle schools is the Juul. And the Juul is a very small one. It's a USB-shaped apparatus. And so, it's easy to go in the pocket. You look at it, you might think that it's just a jump drive, that they're carrying around to and from school. So I think for parents, what they most need to do is to open the lines of communication, right? I mean, it's everywhere. Drugs are everywhere. And so we need to be talking to kids about anything. Even if we don't suspect our kids, we need to say, hey, has anybody approached you with one of these? I need you to know what's in it. I need you to know what could happen to you. It's highly addictive. We need to stop being afraid to talk to our kids about the tough topics.
Right. Be a parent and not a friend.
That's right. Be a parent and not a friend.
Yeah, I love that.
So, it seems like, we have the restrictions on buying cigarettes. You have to be a certain age. Why is this easily attainable to teens? Are they, I don't think they're able to go into a vape store and purchase.
No, it is illegal. They cannot purchase it. It is a smoking apparatus, right? Nicotine is illegal for anyone underage.
How are they getting it then? So easy.
You may have a brother, right? Maybe, or a sister, or
your brother, your friend, right?
Do they strongly card for this?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would hope so, right? So when I went to work for CADA, I started at the Adolescent Center. And there we have a residential program. It's 12 to 17-year-olds, and we have 16 beds, right? And so the longer I was there, the more knowledgeable I became, of course, right? And so it's very common for a client to come in to treatment and say, my older brother gave me my first joint. Right? Or I slipped around and stole my mama's cigarettes. Or, those sorts of things. And so that's where they're getting it. Human beings operate on the pleasure principle. I want what I want when I want it. And I'm curious, and I'm going to experiment, and I want to figure everything out. And so we work to do that. New foods come out, new restaurants open. We want to go try them out and see how they are. It's the same thing. And teenagers, adolescents are really, really curious.
We were talking a little bit, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, about some signs that your kids may be vaping. I want to read a couple of these to you so that way, parents at home, if you hear of any of these that your kids might be doing, you can recognize the warning signs. First is increased secrecy, which, that's understandable, right? It's small, it's compact. Increased irritability and mood changes due to the nicotine addiction. Disappearing money. Never thought about that. Right. Does that happen very often when money disappears out of mom's wallet? Or?
Right. And it starts out in small amounts, usually, sometimes mostly unnoticeable in the beginning, and then it gets a little bit more and a little bit more.
Increased unwillingness to stay home, and increased thirst, desire for flavor, which may be like salty or spicy foods, nosebleeds, and then finding paraphernalia at the house. How would you go about, if you were a mom or a dad, do you think it's okay to go snoop through their stuff? And do you think that could lead to, I'm okay with it.
Yes.
We've had this conversation. Yep. I'm okay with it. Is that the right way to go about it? How do you stop this?
I'm going to speak on that as a parent, right? My children have no privacy.
Right.
It's mine, and so if my kids are acting withdrawn, right, if I see anything out of the normal, I want your cell phone, right? I'm going through your underwear drawer. I'm going to look for everything because in my mind, they are mine to take care of, to raise. I am charged with raising some successful, healthy adults who are going to help rule the world, maybe. And so I don't think that they have privacy.
No.
I often say, I would rather you hate me and be safe than you love me and be dead.
Yep. I totally agree with that. And your kids you've seen it all, so they won't get away with anything.
No closed doors in my house. I pay the cost to be the boss.
That's right.
That's the attitude I have. And like you said, I'd rather for them to be safe and dislike mommy or whatever, and they'll love me the next day or a few minutes later. Kids are resilient than to be, unsafe and be dead. Or like this gentleman in Illinois died. Just last week. And that video, it shook me when I saw it. And I guess they're showing it to really show you and be very transparent to see what this does. This is what I don't understand, Shannon, and a lot of the past few weeks, we've heard of teens, but adults are using these too. So why are we not hearing about adults with the severe lung illnesses? I've just heard recently about the teens.
I think that it's absolutely happening with the adults, right? But the adults are adults. You know, if they choose to drink alcohol and drive, then, you know what I mean? There's consequences for everybody. But they're an adult, and they can make that decision. You know, if I decide not to wear my seatbelt and have a car wreck, it's on me. I feel like as time goes on, right, we will hear more and more about adults that are experiencing these same effects. Right now, like I said earlier, this is a new thing, you know, only about 10 years, and we're seeing it with these kids. And I hate to say it, but it's almost more like a travesty when it's kids. You know, because they're very young, they're not supposed to be doing this. And our brains are not fully developed until we're 25 years old. We can't make a really well thought out decision until we get to about mid-20s, because we have
Some even later,
right? Our neural connections are still growing up until that point, you know. And so you see these kids that are being affected by vaping and drugs in general, and you think, wow, you know, their life is cut so short. And who knows how they got started on it, you know. Peer pressure is a beast.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what happens with a lot of these kids, you know, is that your friends are using it and you want to be cool, and they've got this thing at school that's against the rules, and we can run in the bathroom and we can all hit the jewel and we can get away with something, and then you get this adrenaline rush going, and we all love the way adrenaline feels, right?
Right.
And then so we start chasing that, and we'll do it again and we'll do it again because it feels good. Yeah.
Will we start seeing stiffer regulations on this product? I mean, will it ever go away?
Oh, I don't think it'll ever go away, but I definitely think that we'll see stiffer regulations. Absolutely.
What needs to happen then to keep these kids safe?
We have to have better communication, right? And everybody has to be holding each other accountable about things. I think in our world, we let things slide because we don't want to say anything. We don't want to be seen as the bad guy. And we don't say anything, you know. So I would encourage parents, if your kid comes home and says, I know such and such at school is using a Juul, I would encourage that parent to make a phone call and say, hey, this is what I heard, not so sure, you know. But I feel like the more we get the message out, the better outcome we'll have.
You're saying like what needs to be done or whatever. The governor's in town. I think this is a perfect time to ask him, you know, what could be done, you know, statewide that he could implement, like the Michigan governor. I'm sure that he, you know, gets phone calls, or, you know, the legislators that are up there in Baton Rouge, they get phone calls to have stiffer regulations on this. So that'd be a great question today for Governor John Bel Edwards.
Yeah, definitely. But like you were saying, though, I mean, obviously we need our legislation to make some kind of put their foot down on this. But at the same time, you were just saying, it really relies heavily on the parents.
Yeah, because the
you
laws
need
are there.
responsible parents.
Right, the laws are already there, right? It is illegal. It's underage smoking, you know, and people need to be held accountable. Like there's a charge contributing to the delinquency of a minor, right? I mean, there's all of those sorts of things. We just have to put them into place. We have to use them, you know.
I think also what we will start to see our schools implementing this into their lesson plan. You know, they talk about, you know, sex education, they talk about staying away from drugs and alcohol, even down to, you know, elementary, where they're, you know, talking about DARE. And it's unfortunate that this has to be implemented into that, because this is kind of new. I mean, like you said, it's only 10 years old, and while 10 years old seems like a long time, it's fairly new to the population, and especially these little kids that are starting in grade school now.
Yeah,
that we have to implement this.
You know, they started doing, I'm sure it was the same situation with cigarettes when they first came out and their impact, and after they did plenty of research. Do you potentially seeing higher taxes possibly on these? Because, you know, they are taxing things like cigarettes and alcohol to make it more expensive. The more expensive it is, the less you want to buy it. Do you see that happening?
I do. I think that would absolutely be an option, and it probably should. We have seen such a decrease in smoking. In 1960, when smoking cigarettes hit its peak, it was estimated about 40% of Americans were smoking cigarettes. In 2005, it was down to about 20%.
Wow.
And then now it's down to about 15% of adult Americans smoking cigarettes. And you see, we've seen this rise, though, in these e-cigs. Last year, according to SAMHSA, last year in 2018, 1 in 5 high schoolers were using some sort of e-cigarette, and 1 in 20 middle schoolers.
Oh, no.
Oh, gosh, that just breaks my heart.
It's crazy.
To think of a 10 or 11-year-old, 12-year-old.
But like she says, it's easy to hide.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can't smell it. Oh my, that's unbelievable. It's shocking, and it's so unfortunate. I don't know, Shannon, if we're at the point now to know what the symptoms are, because it is so new and we're just starting to see. But are there symptoms to this severe lung disease, and can a student or adult overcome it? Like, or is it severe and it's just your lungs are scarred?
Damage.
I'm not sure about that, you know. I don't know a whole lot about the actual physical, medical effects. I can tell you that nicotine is highly addictive, right? It's highly addictive. It causes damage in the brain. It affects memory and attention. And these byproducts of the oils, which are those heavy metals in the chromium and the solvents and those sorts of things.
That's in this part right here, the oil part. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know how well
Yeah,
that
I'm
works
just
either. I
like-
mean, you almost have to take a course on it to know.
Right. I was going to say also is the glycerol, right, which is what that young man, they say that young man inhaled into his lungs, which is a byproduct of the aerosolizing from the vape, right? That's what affected
So what
his
was
lungs.
that? What was the glycerol in? Was it in one
It's
of the
in-
oils, or
yes,
was it
in
in here?
It's in the oil.
A particular oil, or is it in all of the oils?
The way I understand it, that is part of the mechanism.
Okay.
The aerosolizing part. Like, I'm not exactly sure how
Yeah,
to
it's
put that in words, right? It's not the nicotine part,
Right.
it's a part of the vehicle of the nicotine. Yes, and that changing there to make it the ability to inhale it.
Yeah. How it changes it from a liquid to a vape.
Right.
Or yeah.
That's the way I understand it. Now, I am not an expert on all of that, those chemical compounds, that kind of thing. But I can tell you that we're going to see the same cancers, the same heart problems that we have seen from cigarettes from this vaping.
Well, we really appreciate you coming and giving us some insight on this, because I know a lot of parents are concerned. A lot of parents have kids that just went back to school. They're meeting new friends. They're learning about new things like vaping and how it works. So we really appreciate you giving us some understanding and some insight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Shannon.
coming. And I know, Dominique, we have more on the dangers of vaping on our Keeping You Safe segment.
Yes, all you have to do is go under KSLA.com on our webpage and click on the Keeping You Safe tab, and we'll have this whole interview under there if you want to go back and sit down and watch it with your child or just watch it again. So that will always be on there. And, yeah.
That's the most important part.
Yeah.
I love that idea, Dom, to sit down with your kids and say, watch this and learn about it, because education on this subject is very important.
Right. And if the parents have not seen that video of that young man, it's very scary, and it depends on the maturity of your child. If they watch it, they may never touch this.
Right.
Because it was really, really hard, and now that he's dead because of this.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Definitely
very tough
eye-opening
topic.
stuff. Well, we thank you guys for joining us. If you have any thoughts, or would you like to send us some ideas for our KSLA Cafe, you can send it to our email addresses or on our KSLA Facebook page. Hope you guys have a good day.